here today with my February wrap up. You'll have to forgive me, I'm feeling a bit blur today. I spent all yesterday in Ipswich, which is about 200 miles away. I was getting more of my tattoo done. I can't show you yet because it's all wrapped and it's swollen and icky and blur, but I also got some dots on the top of my fingers. I don't know if you can see them here, but I love them, they're super cute. Anyway, on to February's wrap up. So this month I read 5 graphic novels, 1 audiobook and 4 books. Which is about, it's not a great month, I did better in January, but I still read some interesting things and I think there's a lot of 4 stars in here as well. First up is a graphic novel called Witches by Scott Snyder. This is another one published by Image Comics, which is one of my favourites. This is about a family who have suffered some sort of trauma in the past and they're trying to move on from it now. So they've moved to a small town and they're just trying to get on with their lives, but weird things start happening and the young protagonist notices strange things happening in the woods. And it all sort of snowballs from there. Obviously there's witches in this that live in the woods and it's a pretty scary story. I thought it was a little bit predictable, but I still enjoyed reading it, and the witches and the depiction of the witches in the graphic novel were absolutely terrifying. So I gave that a 4 out of 5. Next up is another graphic novel, that is Beauty Volume 1 by Jeremy Hone and Jason A. Hurley, and I think that is another Image Comics one. I'll just check. Yep, that is another Image Comics one. This one is about a world set in the near future. It's quite similar to our own, and there's an STI doing the rounds and it makes you beautiful. Everyone's trying to catch it, everyone wants the beauty, everyone wants to be beautiful. It forces your metabolism to go up, so you drop weight if you've got lots of weight and you wake up and you're absolutely gorgeous. Now this comes with its own set of problems when people start spontaneously combusting. So this issue is about the police department trying to get to the bottom of what is happening and finding out if somebody's doing these killings on purpose or if people are it's just the disease running its way through, running its course. I really enjoyed the premise to this story. I found it really interesting. I'm really keen to see where it goes as well. So I gave that, I believe, another 4 out of 5 stars. The next thing I read was the book of Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I got that in last month's Fairy Loot box, so I was super pleased to get it. And it was a really enjoyable story. It's quite a magical story about Scarlett and her sister. They've never left the island that they live on and they live their lives listening to the stories that their gran told them about this wonderful event called Caraval and how everybody wanted to go there and it was a magical evening and only prestigious people got invited. Now the gran is no longer there, I think, and the dad is turned into a bit of a dick. He doesn't let them do anything and doesn't let them go anywhere. One day Scarlett gets the invite to the Caraval. Anyway, I won't spoil it by telling you what happens, but they go there and the world of Caraval is wonderful and magical and also quite dark, and I really enjoyed it. It was an easy read and I think I would have liked to have seen a bit more of Caraval, a bit more of the world building and things that went on, but the things that were described in it did put you right there in with the world and I did really enjoy that. So again, that is another 4-star read from me. Next is an audiobook. I read The Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. This is a collection of essays all to do with anything surrounding feminism, intersectionality. She talks a lot about being a woman of colour and growing up and things that have happened to her to shape her views on the world, and it's a very interesting read. Some of the essays were really difficult to listen to. Some awful things have happened during her life and yeah, just really, really difficult and quite dark. But then there were some uplifting things and there were some good stories, and the way that she's learned from everything, it was just really good to hear her views on life. I was a bit disappointed to hear that it wasn't Roxane Gay narrating it. It was actually, I think they used a white actress for it, so I would have preferred, if not Roxane Gay, if they'd have just used another woman of colour to narrate it. I think it would have been a bit better. She talks about the state of feminism today and how feminists interact with each other as well as other people. It's just a great read, and definitely if it's something you want to learn more about or hear people's views on things, definitely give that a listen or a read. Another 4 out of 5 stars. Next is another book. It's Dust by Hugh Howey. This is the third in a trilogy. I think it's called the Silo trilogy, and it wraps everything up. You've probably seen me talk about these books on and on and on over the last few months, so I won't go into it too much, but it was really enjoyable. He wrapped it up really well, and it's got a nice neat ending, and I'm still not sure whether I was happy with the ending or whether I was a bit like, ugh, but I won't spoil it for you. But the 3 books overall I did really enjoy. 4 out of 5 stars. Rick and Morty Volume 1, I spoke about this when I did the Cosy Reading Night. If you don't know what Rick and Morty is, it's actually an animation of a scientist grandpa and his grandson who go off on adventures, and it's all a bit inappropriate. I think from what I've read, they took the relationship between Doc and Michael J. Fox's character in Back to the Future and twisted it and have created the show out of that, and it's just hilarious. So this one is the first in the graphic novel, and it was a good read. I did enjoy it. I definitely prefer seeing it animated, but it was an easy read. And I gave that 3 out of 5 stars. Now the next is a book I was absolutely thrilled to get my hands on, and that is The Stars of Legion by KAMERON HURLEY, also known as Lesbians in Space. And I have to say I wasn't disappointed. It's a really good space opera set with an all-female, I want to say cast, but it's not. All the characters are female, there's no males in it. And it's about this lady called Zan who has no memory, and she finds out off her friend Jade that she constantly goes out to this planet called Mokshi, and she tries to get in, but every time when she comes back she's lost her memory. So Zan is trying to figure out why. The planets are dying that they live on. These planets seem to be a big living organism, and everything seems to feed everything else, and it turns out that the women all get pregnant without any insemination and give birth to whatever the world needs at the time. And there's been a war going on for absolutely ages where 2 parties have been fighting to try and get control of the world, and Zan and Jade are somehow involved in this. Jade because she's the daughter of a big warmonger and the head of one of the planets called Katsarina, I think. I'm explaining it very badly, but it's a space opera with women, and they all kick ass, and there's conspiracy going on, and you don't know who has done what or who is who, though I did work out who Zan was quite early on, but it's still a really enjoyable read. Not the best book I've ever read, but definitely a good one, and another one that I gave 4 stars. Next is Unfuck Your Habitat by Rachel Hoffman. This is a non-fiction book about, I guess it's the realistic antidote to the magic of tidying. So this is, how can you keep your house clean if you're always really busy, if you're not a tidy person, if you've got a physical or mental issue that means that you can't be cleaning all the time because you don't have the energy or you're not able to. And it takes a realistic look at all people and gives a few resolutions about how you can maybe get better at keeping your place tidy. It also tries to get rid of the fantasy that we're all going to look like we have show homes. Unless there's somebody at home tidying constantly, that is never going to happen. So it was a really good book. It was refreshing, and she even spoke about there was a section on if you're depressed and you're unable to get out of bed, then you wouldn't be expected to get up and do a deep clean on your house, but maybe you could wash the pots, or maybe you could pick your clothes up off the floor, whatever. And she works on the rule of 20-10 is the suggestion, but you can tweak it to whatever you want. So 20 minutes tidy and 10 minutes rest. Just pick, if you just want to do one of those, you can. If you are cleaning the whole room and you want to do loads of them, you can do that as well. It's all about just doing what works for you as an individual person in your individual life, because not everybody's the same. So I've started doing bits and bobs for that, and it is working. I'm currently trying to get my partner to read it so he can also do it. So I gave that 3 out of 5. Next, another graphic novel, Ravensgate by Anthony Horowitz. This is set in Yorkshire, and it's about a kid who loses all his family in an accident. He stays at home and his family go out and they're in a car crash and they die. He gets bounced around foster homes and is generally pretty badly behaved from what I've read. Oh no, he gets caught, that's it. He gets caught doing something because he's been led astray by his naughty friend, but it wasn't really him. But he ends up getting taken to the countryside by this lady who's fostering him. so that he can be sort of work for free. But it turns out that this lady isn't exactly who she says she is, and it's all about why they want him there and what is his importance in the story. I found some of this quite predictable as well, and some of the writing a bit clunky, but overall I did enjoy the story. It was set in Yorkshire, which is where I live, so there was quite a lot of places on there that I recognised. I gave this 3 stars out of 5. And another graphic novel is The Beauty Volume 2. I spoke earlier about Volume 1. The Beauty Volume 2 is a standalone story about a group of people we haven't met before. There's a trans woman of colour who also happens to be an assassin, and it tells the story of how she came to be an assassin and where she came from when she was growing up. And the person who runs the diner she ended up working at, and eventually she ended up working for him in an assassin's capacity. It's about that group and one of her friends who gets the beauty to disguise himself from people who are trying to capture him. I enjoyed this as well. I think as much as I enjoyed the first one, it was a bit weird that they decided to go with a standalone story as the second volume, and I don't know if the third one will be the same. But again, you get to know the characters really quickly, and they were all really well-rounded characters, so I enjoyed reading them, and it was good to see a bit of diversity in there as well. I would say 4 out of 5 stars for this. So that's it for me today. That's my February wrap-up done and dusted. I'll be back in a few days with more videos. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe. Bye!